Let's get this out of the way first. The Nightmare update introduces the Nightmare mode, which is now the hardest mode in the game. This difficulty setting does not come in regular gameplay, it only comes when you try and summon it right next to the basic shop. Edward is obviously much harder in this mode. Armor has been slightly buffed, and in Nightmare mode he has 4 armor bars, which means that the armor will absorb 40% of all damage. However, it's not that big of a gap compared to the 3 armor bars seen in hard difficulty, which absorbs 35% of total damage. And that is only a slight buff, but everything else is insane. Edward now multitask his attacks. He doesn't switch from machine gun mode to claw mode or to missile mode. He's perfectly fine to do 2 to 3 attacks simultaneously and with higher damage. As well as the 3 main attacks, Edward's missiles now leave a trail of poison that surrounds the rail car, which is dangerous for you to touch. The missiles are now so strong, the entire rail cars will become unusable due to the fact that the entire floor of the rail car has been destroyed, cutting off escape routes for you. So how do you beat this thing? I've beaten Nightmare mode once, and let me tell you, it was not easy. It took a full squad of 8 players, each of us has a minimum 250 journeys, and with a stacked squad, we needed 29 attempts to do it. Yes, 29 attempts. The only possible way to beat Edward at Nightmare mode is through a stacked squad of players that have a general strategy. I firmly believe there is no hope in you beating Nightmare mode with randoms. So what was our strategy? Firstly, use railcars with high defense only. This means military wagons are the only viable option that you have. These railcars stand the best against Edward's missiles, and you need a full team of 8 players, which is the maximum server limit. This is because 8 railcars ensure you the most space that allows you to escape from Edward's attacks. Anything less than that makes this Nightmare mode impossible. And that's the equipment done. So what is the strategy? We divided our team into 2 groups, the survivors and the gunners. The survivors are the people who have light equipment only, and they need to move fast and dodge Edward's attacks. These survivors can't afford to bring any bulky equipment, all they need is 2 light weapons. The setup I used as a survivor was the Druid Brick Model 3 and the SP9 Mini, which I consider the best weapons in this lightweight class category. The gunners are people with more heavy arsenal that are meant to do damage to Edward. Assault rifles, shotguns, and any short range weapons is out of the question as a gunner. The only thing that you can bring is snipers. This is because you will be able to hear missiles approaching you if you're far away from Edward, and you will not be susceptible to Edward's more close range attacks like his claws and machine guns, on top of that his missiles. Stamina is now more important than ever. Never let your stamina reach 0% in any situation. This is because when your stamina reaches 0%, it takes a while to recharge, while if you edge it to about 5%, it recharges faster. And another advice, do not spread around the train. This is the biggest problem that we have faced while playing Nightmare mode. As the round goes on, there are more dead ends. So to reduce this, we have to condense ourselves to a couple of rail cars and only move along when it's absolutely necessary. By ever focusing on a couple of rail cars, this decreases the amount of dead ends that Edward is able to create as time goes on. And yeah, that's basically all I have. So what are my final thoughts about it? I think this was a good addition in the game overall. Edward the Man-Eating Train has gotten stale due to how easy the game becomes after like 150 journeys. There's not much to do other than get titles or something like that. But I felt the implementation of Nightmare mode wasn't done right. I don't think Edward the Man-Eating Train needs a game mode that requires you to have a full stack of players to complete it in order to be fun again. I think it needs a game mode that still is harder than hard mode, but is still achievable when done with randoms. I recommend toning down the difficulty of Nightmare mode in some ways, like for example, stopping Edward from multitasking or reduce the frequency of the missiles. Another criticism that I have is that voting for Nightmare mode is bad, and I would much prefer playing Nightmare mode in the normal map instead of voting for it. What made the game special was because the difficulty was chosen in such a unique way. By voting for Nightmare mode, the developers have essentially undone one of the biggest strengths for the game. I recommend making a new area and throw 1 or 2 Nightmare paths inside of it in the future update. And yeah, that's about it. I'm giving this a B+.